I guess this is where I go into commentator mode and put on my man voice.
Oh, the man voice, huh?
Yeah, right, to make it seem like I'm not, in fact, a 16-year-old boy.
I don't think you're a 16-year-old boy either.
Some people do based on my voice. It's
Ah.
very throaty, makes it sound like I'm still going through puberty. Regardless, you created Cordelia's Saga.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Oh, I mean, that's a very generic question. I'll
know.
give you that. But
That's why we start with it.
I will say, though, making Cordelia's Quest has been a really fun experience.
Did you change the name?
God damn it. Cordelia's Saga. Gosh, it's kind of a running title, but I do switch between the two quite a lot.
Okay. I guess that's as good a starting point as any. So, full disclosure, the time we were recording this, I still haven't beaten the game yet.
Yeah.
I still haven't gotten past Chapter 2, but feel free to let spoilers fly, because I've read King Lear, I kind of know where it goes.
Well, okay, yeah, fair enough.
So, I guess we'll do this in a manner similar to how I structured the openings of the videos. And the first one, I really want to talk about the fan project experience.
Yeah.
Sort of, how much have you interacted with stuff like this? Like fan projects?
Oh, so that's an interesting one, right? Because I love fan projects. It always makes me happy to see them, especially like, the old Pokemon ROM hacks. Oh gosh, those were amazing back in the day.
I was always more of a Mario ROM hack
Those
guy.
are amazing too. Have you ever seen the Beatles? Some dude put the Beatles into Mario Bros. 2. All of them. It was amazing.
Right.
But yeah, I love fan projects, and it really shows like how people love a property or an idea or a concept, and well, they make something with it, and I think that's great.
And now, is that sort of how you felt about King Lear? And that's what led you to this? Or was it just happenstance? Like, what was it about King Lear that made you want to gamify it?
Well, King Lear is my favorite of Shakespeare's plays. I just love the whole thing to bits. And, well, I've always used like Shakespearean references, especially from King Lear and other projects I've done, whether it be my writing or other smaller projects. And so I always wanted to like make a game, and I think when I started discussing at the beginning of the semester, we were talking about adaptation, right?
Right.
And so I really like the idea of, well, are there any Shakespeare games? Because, that's kind of an interesting topic. And, well, I have game programs. I have a good, extensive knowledge of Shakespeare by this point. Why don't I make one? And so I did. I started writing in a notebook. I think it's like 40 pages of just text and numbers and all kinds of other figures.
I'm surprised you were dedicated enough to write it in a notebook.
I mean, I generally start a lot of projects in actual physical writing, like notebooks. It helps structure everything. It's in a place that I'm not going to delete. Or my computer dies for some reason, as happened before in the past. It sucks terribly.
Believe me, I know.
So, yeah, I always like writing things down. And actually, the act of writing it, I think, helps me organize things a bit better. Because I have only like so much space on a page. And so, as we've seen in the game so far, even by Chapter 2, there are plenty of elements that were obviously not a part of the original. In the videos, I call them a lot more based than what was in the original. At what point of the creative process did those sort of jump in? Like, did you start off as wanting to always add things to the story, or did it start off as like a one-to-one creation of Lear but with game elements? No, I was never gonna make a one-to-one. If you're gonna adapt something, I think that's pointless. If I'm gonna adapt it, I wanted to make it my own, right? So what I actually did is I took it from a fantasy setting that I use, and I applied that to it. How would these stories work in my setting? What would the characters do? And so everything, I'm using the basic characters, stories, and plot of a lot of Shakespearean stories, and using that to make a new story in this fantasy setting that I've made.
Okay. So let's actually talk about the games... How do I... I'm looking at my notes and I can't read my own notes. SRPG Maker. So you said earlier you have a bunch of game maker programs.
Yeah.
I know you have RPG Maker. You obviously have SRPG Studio. What other projects, makers do you have?
I've used two. I've used one that was making visual novels, which is, it's not necessarily a game maker per se, but I had made a couple projects during high school for that.
Right.
A couple classes, I did stuff like that. And I also did one that was much more in depth of a system called Game Maker Studio, which is actually programming rather than having...
Oh, the hard stuff.
Yeah, the hard stuff. I made a project in that, and really fun, and I need to go back to that sometime.
Fun, in air quotes, because that sounds like a nightmare.
I mean, it was, and it wasn't. Like, it was, especially you hit roadblocks. But even with programs like SRPG Maker, trust me, roadblocks hit you like a truck when suddenly you're trying to do something.
I know, we ran into a few when you were trying to give me the program.
I mean, that was more because of freaking the cloud screwing up files.
It's a roadblock either way. What made you choose the SRPG style of games for this instead of, say, a traditional RPG or something like that, since you have access to both?
So, my biggest thing is I love like games like Fire Emblem, these real strategic sort of like grand scale fantasy games where you're not just controlling 4 or 5 people. It's like a whole band of different characters and you explore different things, and I just think it translates really well to Shakespeare. And I say that because there's a lot of like character interaction, there's a lot of room for like big grand scenes of battle, and I think exploring that with a bunch of different characters and getting some from King Lear or from Winter's Tale or even King Richard, which I didn't use but for example's sake, you could bring them all in together with something like an SRPG. Whereas, I mean, part of it also is time-wise. Oddly enough, the SRPG system I'm using is a bit faster to make than your traditional RPG.
Probably because you don't have to program like multiple attacks and status conditions.
Yeah, it's a bit simpler, more direct, and I just liked it. So I really wanted to, when I started making this, I knew exactly that I wanted it to be like a Fire Emblem-esque type game. So
that actually brings up a point that I brought up in one of the episode introductions is I don't have very much experience with SRPGs. I've literally only played Fire Emblem Awakening back in like 2014. What is your experience with those games? Because you obviously have a lot, but like, do you remember when it started or when it became an influence?
It actually started with the Advanced Wars series, oddly enough. So Advanced Wars isn't what you call the traditional SRPG, but it's pretty much a strategy game where you're moving units on a board, right, trying to...
How topical, because it's getting a remake pretty soon.
Yeah. And so, I want that remake, by the way, but... So, I started with that, and then... So I've always really loved those sort of like grand scale stories with big battles and a lot of different characters and different motivations and stuff. And so then I came across Fire Emblem, some of the older games, like the old DS games. And I really, really loved them for how much they did character. Because the stories of those games mix so well with like the gameplay for me. Like it all worked together in such a great way that I just adore them.
So it's always just sort of been an influential part of your gaming mythology, I guess. I don't know the better word for it. It's always been an influence on you?
Pretty much, yeah. I've always loved those games, and I've always wanted to make something like that. So making Cordelia Saga has been really fun in that way.
I guess that leads us to, from the SRPG experience to the Shakespeare experience. I don't like Shakespeare very much. I find it boring, and I'm pretty sure I'm in the majority on that. So when you came to me and said, hey, I'm making a Shakespeare-based video game, I thought you were joking because I didn't think anybody liked Shakespeare enough to create a game around him.
Okay, I really love Shakespeare stories. I mean, okay, they're not really meant to be read. They're meant to be seen, of course. And so actually seeing performances and stuff is a much better experience, I think, than what most people have, which is reading people talking back and forth for 3 hours. So that, and I've had quite an extensive history with Shakespeare. I mean, Donna, I have taken her class many times while here at Highlands, and I have gone through King Lear, for instance, like I think 5 times already.
God.
I've read the play so many times, but I just love a lot of the concepts and just really the character that a lot of Shakespeare has.
Now, did you start working on this before this semester?
No, I started at the very beginning of the semester.
Okay. Did we know that it could be used as an assignment back then? Or?
No, this was just me like, oh, yeah, since we're talking about it, adaptation and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I could do this. This sounds amazing. And I started writing down notes, and it was started as a small thing, became much bigger really quick.
Does that mean you plan on finishing it?
Oh, I most definitely plan on finishing it. In fact, I've gotten most of the maps done and a lot of like technical stuff done. I just need to do most of the writing for all of the scenes
and rewriting, because I know you haven't seen the episodes yet.
Yeah.
But I very much make fun of the grammar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand.
It's an easy joke, and I'm all for lowbrow humor.
Yeah. Again, it is a demo which you have to remember.
I know. And it's the 3.0 alpha. That's how you make it sound fancy and professional.
Okay, yeah. Well, in any case, yes. So my biggest thing is I want to get it all down first.
Right.
And then go back and iron things out. Because the way that you put text into the system can be a little out of your way. There's no just like big document that you can overlook. It's like thousands of tiny little documents.
Oh no.
Yeah, so you have to like every time 2 characters are speaking, you have to individually put each text box for them. And so it can add up a lot, especially if I find mistakes all the time whenever I'm working on it. And I have to stop myself from just going back and reading everything all over again to make sure it's... But I think that's part of the experience. And again, it still has a lot of ironing out to do.
Right. Do you plan to do any other Shakespeare-based games? Like, can you think of a way to gamify Romeo and Juliet?
In fact, I almost put Romeo and Juliet in this game. Almost.
What would that have even been like?
So, like, they're the 2 sides, right? You have the Capulets and the... oh gosh, curse my memory.
Oh god, I can't remember. Montagues.
Yeah, there you go. So you have these 2 groups, right? These 2 distinct faction groups, and then these characters of Romeo and Juliet, which you could incorporate into units. And I thought of using that, having that town be a setting between these 2 warring factions. But ultimately I decided not to, mostly because I don't like Romeo and Juliet quite as much as other things, and I wanted to put in a Winter's Tale much more. Winter's Tale, Hamlet, King Lear, and a couple other characters taken from stories but not their stories themselves.
Right. Sounds like you want to make the Avengers of Shakespeare.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way, but I do... a lot of Shakespeare adaptations tend to do this, like comic books and things like that. They'll take characters from all over, sort of the like Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, the more like title ones that everybody knows, and put them in weird situations. Right. So I kind of was keeping that tradition a little bit, but I liked it more picking out characters I think that worked thematically well together.
Right. And like I said, I'm so disappointed I wasn't able to finish the Alpha 3.0 trial yet, because I really was interested to see where it was going, especially with all the new elements that I'm not familiar with. Because I'll be honest, I haven't read The Winter's Tale. I don't know anything about it because I don't read Shakespeare. Which, that actually brings me to a question I have for you. Why did you choose me to do this?
Well, I chose you because I know you're good with computer stuff. I know that you like games. And I just like you, so I wanted to share.
You. I'm glad I got to be your guinea pig.
Oh, I mean, if you want to put it that way.
I don't know what other way to put it. I was like, I feel like Dr. Donna would have been a better choice because she would have offered analytical analysis about Shakespeare.
Could you imagine Donna playing?
Yes, which is why it would be funny.
Fair enough.
My teacher, who's never played a video game, plays the first video game in her life. Must watch. The views would be insane.
Oh, no.
Okay, well, that's all my 5 lines of notes I have. Is there any other information that you sort of want to throw out there, either for the fan project experience, the Srpg experience, or the Shakespeare experience? Which I feel are like the 3 elements that are really going into this, obviously.
Well, I think that just kind of that nature of like creating something new out of something old has always been like a really nice thing to see. And I say many other people, if they have any, I think they really like, do something similar. You can learn a lot of different things about things that you like by taking it apart and doing different things with it.
Once you finish this project, is there going to be a place where people can actively seek it out to play it themselves?
So, that's an interesting question because I'm trying to get together like an author's website because I do write extensively. But if I can have a website where I'll submit different writings and stuff, different projects, I'd probably put it up on that for free for anybody who's interested to really just go download it and have a nice game to experience.
It's a lot of work for a free project.
Well, yeah, but it is a bit more of a passion project than a monetary one. And I kind of enjoy having this thing that people can just enjoy rather than having any sort of roadblock to that.
I'm trying to think of jokes to make, but you are way too genuine. You're too nice to joke about. I need a way to paint you as the bad guy for giving away a great product for free, and I can't.
Well, I mean, in fairness, as far as a marketing technique goes, if you want to go in that direction, having a free product with my books, which are for sale,
Do you want to shout out those?
Not really at the moment, because I still need to figure out what's going on with my publisher.
Okay. We gotta promote something, make it seem like we're an actual podcast, even though this will probably be the one and only episode.
I mean, I'd love to continue something like this. I've always adored podcasts.
Right. I've always talked with people who have been on the channel before about making a podcast, but unfortunately, adulting is hard, and it's impossible to find an hour to talk about bullshit.
It's impossible to find an hour to do, anything. It's, right. Oh, gosh. Like finding time to make this game, for instance, which, let me tell you, I take way too many projects on at the same time sometimes, and I end up to 3 a.m. I don't even realize, but it's just God, I need to get this done.
Do you know how many hours you've logged into making this project?
Gee, it's been easily at least 50.
I was expecting 100,000.
I mean, no. Well, okay. So actually doing the game, maybe 50. Doing all the assets for the game, maybe another 20. Doing all of the planning. Again,
the full experience.
You would not imagine. I only did the characters, character face sets, a lot of those sort of things. Also, I bought some assets, and
oh wow! So you actually put money into this?
Oh yeah, this is
I didn't know that
passion project. I put in I think $30 worth of assets.
Wow!
And so actually transferring those assets to function in the game, that was one of those roadblocks I mentioned earlier. I did not realize how hard it would be, but I think it's worth it because I really enjoy this project and I do want to see it through to the end. And actually spending money on it kind of is that extra kick, finish the
makes it feel more tangible.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do a lot of drawing, so I started drawing the characters quickly realizing after like the 50th drawing that it's gonna be a lot of drawing, because each character has, I think, 4 to 8 different emotion sets. So if there are 30 characters, that's
math that I can't do very quickly.
That is a lot.
That's
of
like
that's
240.
Yeah. It's a lot of images, and it has to all be formatted to work with the system itself. Trust me, I had some weird formatting issues where until I found the right size, characters kept going up and down on the screen.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's just really weird.
I feel like I wouldn't be able to get that deep into it because I'd be worried about accidentally putting the super happy face over angry dialogue and making all my characters seem like a psychopath.
Well, I did learn how to use the there are a couple advanced options that you have to like really go out of your way to turn on in Srpg Maker, which I found I learned how to use, and it streamlines a lot of the like emotion sets for characters, where you can actually choose them as you're going, so it's not quite so finicky and making sure everything works appropriately.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot to ask you this in the earlier part. How much experience do you have with Srpg Studio?
So this is actually not my first project, interestingly enough. I did make 10 chapters worth of another project a couple of years ago. Yeah.
That makes it sound like you didn't finish.
I didn't finish.
You wrote 10 chapters?
Well, yeah, I was learning the system, so I had to do something with it. I had just recently heard about it. I had just finished Fire Emblem Fates, I believe.
Is that the Wii U one, I think?
No. That's the 3DS one.
Fates. Oh, wait. That was on 3DS? Oh, I thought it was on Wii U. Okay. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
So I finished that game, and I really they're making a game maker for SRPGs. This is amazing. So I bought it. At the time, it was actually pretty cheap. It was like $20 because it had just released from, what the heck is it called on Steam?
Steam Workshop?
Nah.
Early Access?
Early Access. It just released on Early Access.
I think it used to be called like Greenlight or something.
And so I just had to get it. So I scrounged up money for it. I bought it. Learned the whole system.
Scrounged up about $20. Didn't eat lunch that week.
I even did the same thing I did with Cordelia Saga. I had an entire notebook, basically writing out an entire story, all the characters and stuff. I mean, it got scope creeped because I was trying to figure out the limitations of the system, which I did very quickly. But I have a pretty good experience with Srpg Studio.
Okay. So, how long do you think it would have taken you to put this demo together if you were taken back to your first experience with it?
I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have?
No,
it wouldn't exist.
I mean, let me put it this way, right? Just the fact that I even made characters, like I drew characters for this project.
Never would have happened.
I mean, yeah. And part of it is because I've been doing a lot of drawing and stuff for like digital art. That's something that I do quite a lot. And so I was already doing it for other projects because I make like tabletop games and things like that.
Right.
And so I just translated it over real easy. If I didn't know the system at all, I would have no idea for the formats. I'd have no idea for any of the finicker bits or those previously mentioned advanced options.
I'm always surprised by how much you seem to have your hands in. Like, author, you make all these cool tabletop characters whenever we meet on Friday for D&D, and you're making these games. I'm surprised you have any time in the day to do this.
Well, I mean, yeah. So
it's a lot of passion.
It's yeah.
Believe me, I am greatly impressed by it.
I mean, you do sacrifice some things like sleep quite a lot, which
Who needs it?
That, and again, I take on too many projects sometimes, especially like during the semester when it's like 4 essays. I can write a short story, a novel, and this and everything else. It'll be fine. And
your version of procrastinating is so much better than everyone else's. My version is binging YouTube for 5 hours.
Well, I mean, it does help though, I guess, that a lot of like the stuff I watch on YouTube, for instance, tends to be geared towards making things or really like well, supplemental to what I already do.
Right. Helping you sort of make your own art better.
Yeah.
Art meaning, everything you're a part of, writing, creating, all that. Yeah, that's about all I've got. This wasn't, this isn't meant to be a super long thing, so if you have any final notes you want to go over about any part of the process or anything about the game in particular, got any wrap-up notes?
Not particularly. I'm glad that you're enjoying the story.
I really want to get to that side mission with the bandits that you told me about.
You need to. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
I can't wait to get there because I need to wait until I can record more videos because I want that to be on camera. I don't want to keep my reaction to myself for that because you make it sound so good.
I think you'll enjoy the reference.
Okay. Well, if that's all you've got and you are too good to shout out anything, you want to plug your Twitter or
I
your
don't have
Twitch?
any socials. I have none
You
whatsoever.
have no social? Make one right now. What's your Twitter handle? Alejandro at Srpg Chad.
No, I don't think I could do that.
Twitch.tv/SRPG.
I mean, I'm
I
struggling.
couldn't come up with a joke to finish that line.
I struggled to make even just a website. I couldn't imagine making something I have to write something for every day to keep relevant.
That's why you get a bot to do it for you, like all the good tweeters. I guess that's what you call them. All right, this conversation is devolving very quickly. So I guess I'll do the outro and thank everyone for watching or listening, I suppose. Expect more videos for Cordelia's Saga when I eventually get around to it, because I very much want to finish the game. And I look forward to later versions of it, especially when it's finished.
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming on to the podcast with no name, which I don't think I can use because I think that's a legitimate I think that's actually a podcast that already exists.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. We'll come up with a title later.